The atmosphere was electric that Tuesday night on The Tonight Show, but Jimmy Fallon had no idea he was about to witness the most devastating display of mutual protection he'd ever encountered. The studio hummed with its usual pre-show energy. The Roots were warming up the crowd with their infectious rhythms, and everything felt like another magical night of late-night television. Until an 8-year-old boy's confession about his deepest fear would expose the heartbreaking lengths that two people who love each other will go to shield one another from unbearable truth. Catherine Walsh sat in the second row with her 8-year-old son, Ethan, both dressed carefully for their special night. Catherine wore a beautiful burgundy scarf wrapped elegantly around her head, paired with a soft cream sweater that brought warmth to her pale complexion. Ethan sat beside her in a navy blue button-down shirt and khaki pants, his small hand never straying far from his mother's arm. To the casual observer, they looked like any other mother and son enjoying a night at the theater together. But what the audience couldn't see was the invisible battle being fought between them, a daily performance of strength and normalcy that was exhausting them both. Catherine had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer 6 months earlier, and since that moment, her life had become a carefully choreographed dance of treatments, medications, and the overwhelming effort to maintain some semblance of normal childhood. For Ethan, she'd lost her hair to chemotherapy, her energy to radiation, and her sense of certainty about the future to the relentless march of medical appointments and test results. But what she hadn't lost was her determination to be the mother Ethan needed, strong, optimistic, and completely in control. Ethan, for his part, had become an expert at reading his mother's moods, at knowing when she needed him to be extra quiet, extra helpful, extra good. He'd learned to make his own breakfast on mornings when she couldn't get out of bed. He'd learned to smile when visitors came over, even when he could see the worry in their eyes. He'd learned to be the kind of son who didn't add to his mother's burdens, who made her proud instead of giving her one more thing to worry about. Jimmy was working the crowd during a commercial break, his boundless enthusiasm lighting up every corner of the studio as he connected with families throughout the audience. When he spotted Catherine and Ethan, something about their quiet dignity and the way Catherine's scarf caught the studio lights drew him over to their section. "Good evening, you two," Jimmy called out with his signature warmth. "Are you having an amazing time tonight?" "We're having the best time," Catherine replied, her voice carrying the kind of gentle strength that spoke of countless bedtime stories and patient explanations of difficult concepts. "This is my son Ethan, and this is actually a very special treat for us." "Well, Ethan's got great taste in shows," Jimmy grinned, kneeling down to the boy's level. "Are you excited to be here, buddy?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically, but there was something careful about his excitement, something measured that seemed beyond his 8 years. "Very excited, Mr. Fallon. My mom loves your show, and she deserves to have fun." Jimmy's eyebrows raised slightly. There was something in the way Ethan spoke about his mother, something protective and mature, that caught his attention. "Sounds like your mom raised a pretty thoughtful young man." "She's the best mom in the world," Ethan said simply, and Catherine's eyes glistened slightly behind her bright smile. Before Jimmy could explore the moment further, the stage manager was calling for places, and he had to return to his mark. The show continued with its usual polished rhythm. Jimmy delivered a flawless monologue, interviewed a popular actress about her upcoming film, and had the audience laughing at all the right moments. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned for the next segment, What Matters Most, where Jimmy would bring families on stage and ask them about the things they cherished most in life. It was designed to be heartwarming and uplifting, the kind of content that reminded viewers about the importance of family and love. Jimmy scanned the audience and his eyes went directly back to Catherine and Ethan. There was something about the way they sat together. Ethan's constant awareness of his mother's comfort, Catherine's gentle smile whenever she looked at her son. That made him want to know their story. "I think I know who should come up here," Jimmy announced, gesturing toward them. The audience applauded as Catherine's face showed surprise, mixed with what looked like carefully controlled concern about being the center of attention. They made their way onto the stage, Ethan staying protectively close to his mother's side, while Catherine moved with the careful grace of someone managing invisible limitations. Once they were seated next to Jimmy's desk, Ethan immediately scooted his chair closer to his mother's, a gesture so automatic it spoke of months of providing comfort and support. "So, Ethan," Jimmy began, settling into his chair with his usual engaging manner. "You're 8 years old, which is such a great age. You're old enough to really understand the world around you, but young enough to still see magic everywhere. I want to ask you something. What's the thing you love most about your mom?" It was such an innocent question, the kind Jimmy asked children all the time. Usually, kids talked about how their moms made great cookies, or read good bedtime stories, or gave the best hugs. But the moment the words left his mouth, Jimmy saw something shift in the atmosphere. Ethan's careful composure faltered, and Catherine's hand instinctively reached for her son's. Ethan looked at his mother, then back at Jimmy, and for a moment seemed unable to speak. When he finally found his voice, it carried a weight that no 8-year-old should ever have to bear. "I love how brave my mom is," he said quietly. "She's really sick, but she never lets me see her scared." The studio fell completely silent. Jimmy felt his stomach drop as he realized they had ventured into territory far more serious than he had anticipated. "But the thing is," Ethan continued, his voice starting to crack, "I know she's scared anyway. I can tell when she's hurting, even though she tries to hide it from me, and I pretend I don't know because I don't want her to worry about me worrying about her." Catherine's face went pale as she listened to her son articulate fears she thought she had successfully hidden from him. "Ethan, sweetheart," she whispered, but he continued, "Every night I lie awake and listen to make sure Mom is still breathing. Sometimes I hear her crying in her room, but when I ask her about it the next morning, she always says she's fine." Tears were now streaming down his face. "I'm really scared that one day I'm going to wake up and she's not going to be there anymore, but I can't tell her that because she's already worried about so many things." Jimmy felt like his heart was being torn apart. He looked at Catherine, whose own tears were now flowing freely as she realized that her 8-year-old son had been carrying this enormous fear in silence, trying to protect her just as she had been trying to protect him. "Oh, baby," Catherine said, pulling Ethan closer to her. "I didn't know you were scared too. I've been trying so hard to be strong for you, to make sure you felt safe and normal." "But I'm not normal," Ethan sobbed. "Other kids don't have to worry about their moms dying. Other kids don't have to learn how to make breakfast because their mom is too sick to get out of bed. I try to be good and not cause problems, but inside I'm scared all the time." Jimmy felt tears building in his own eyes as he watched this mother and son both trying so desperately to shield each other from the reality of their situation that they were each suffering in isolation. "Catherine," Jimmy said softly, his voice thick with emotion, "Ethan, what you're both describing, this isn't weakness. This is love. You're both carrying fear and pain alone because you love each other so much that you don't want to add to the other person's burden." He stood up and walked around his desk to kneel in front of both of them. "But can I tell you something? Fear shared isn't doubled. It's manageable. When you carry scary things alone, they get bigger and scarier in the dark." The audience was completely silent now, 300 people holding their breath as they witnessed this raw display of family love and vulnerability. "Ethan," Jimmy said, looking directly at the boy. Your mom isn't trying to hide her feelings because she doesn't trust you. She's doing it because she loves you so much that she wants to carry the scary parts so you don't have to. He turned to Catherine. And Catherine, this incredible young man isn't pretending he's okay to avoid causing problems. He's trying to take care of you because he can see that you're fighting something big and scary, and he wants to help. Jimmy felt his own tears spilling over as he looked at them. But what if instead of trying to protect each other from the fear, you shared it? What if you both knew that it was okay to be scared sometimes, because scary things are less scary when you face them together? Behind the scenes, something unprecedented was happening. The entire production crew had stopped their usual between-segment preparations to watch this moment unfold in the control room. Producers who typically focused on pacing and commercial timing were reaching for tissues. Even the Roots, who had seen every possible kind of television moment, were visibly moved by this display of raw, honest emotion. But Jimmy wasn't thinking about television production. He was thinking about this mother and son who had been trying so hard to be strong for each other that they'd forgotten they could be strong together. Catherine, Jimmy continued, Ethan is scared because he loves you. And Ethan, your mom is trying to be brave because she loves you. But love doesn't mean pretending you're not afraid. Love means trusting each other enough to share the fear. Catherine looked at her son through her tears. Ethan, I need you to know something. I am scared sometimes. I'm scared about being sick, and I'm scared about what that means for our future. But I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of leaving you. Mom, Ethan said, throwing his arms around her neck, I'm scared of losing you too. I'm scared every single day. But I love you more than I'm scared, and I want to help take care of you like you take care of me. Jimmy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something that caught the studio lights. It was a small silver locket, heart-shaped and engraved, that his own mother had given him during a difficult time in his life. This was given to me by someone who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, Jimmy said, placing it gently in Ethan's hands. Courage is feeling the fear and choosing love anyway. I want you both to keep this as a reminder that you don't have to be brave alone. Jimmy turned to address the entire studio. Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed is what real courage looks like. Not the courage to pretend everything is fine when it's not, but the courage to admit when you're scared and to trust that love is strong enough to handle the truth. He looked directly into the main camera. If you're watching this and you're facing something scary, if you're trying to be strong for someone while your own heart is breaking, please know that it's okay to let the people who love you see your fear. It's okay to let them help you carry it. The audience began to respond, but not with typical applause. People were standing, crying, reaching for each other. The studio had become a place of collective recognition of the universal human experience of trying to protect the people we love, sometimes even from the truth. Catherine looked at Ethan, then at Jimmy, then back at her son. Ethan, from now on, we're going to be honest with each other about being scared. We're going to take care of each other, and that means sharing the hard feelings, not hiding them. Ethan nodded, still holding the locket Jimmy had given him. And Mom, it's okay if you need to cry sometimes. It's okay if you're tired or sick, I can help you. And you don't have to pretend with me anymore. Jimmy felt something profound shift in the atmosphere as he watched this mother and son give each other permission to be human, to be frightened, to be struggling, and to do it all together instead of in isolation. That, Jimmy said, his voice barely above a whisper, is what love looks like. What happened next wasn't scripted or planned by any producer. Catherine and Ethan embraced right there on stage, and for the first time since her diagnosis, they weren't trying to comfort each other or minimize their fears. They were just holding each other and acknowledging that they were both scared and that it was okay to be scared together. As the segment wrapped up and they prepared for the final commercial break, something beautiful unfolded. Audience members began sharing their own experiences. Parents who had tried to hide illnesses from their children, children who had worried about sick parents, families who had learned that shared fear was lighter than solitary terror. The studio became an impromptu support group, a place where people realized that the strength they thought they needed to show their loved ones was actually preventing the very connection that could help them all heal. During the extended break, Ethan asked Jimmy quietly, "Do you think it's okay that I'm scared about my mom?" Jimmy knelt down to Ethan's level. "I think being scared about someone you love that much shows how big your heart is. And I think your mom needs to know about that big heart, because it will help her feel less alone, too." The show ended differently that night. Instead of his usual upbeat sign-off, Jimmy looked directly into the camera and said, "If you're carrying fear tonight, if you're trying to be strong for someone while your own heart is breaking, remember that the people who love you want to help carry your fear. Let them. Because love isn't about protecting each other from the scary stuff. It's about facing the scary stuff together." The episode aired exactly as it happened, with no editing to soften the emotion or rush through the difficult moments. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Cancer support organizations reported an increase in calls from families seeking counseling services. Social media filled with stories from families dealing with illness who had been inspired to have honest conversations about fear and uncertainty. But perhaps the most powerful impact was on other families facing medical crises who realized they didn't have to suffer in isolation. 4 months later, Catherine and Ethan returned to The Tonight Show with an update. Catherine's treatment was progressing well, and while the future remained uncertain, they were facing it together with honesty and hope. "That night changed everything for us," Catherine told Jimmy during their follow-up appearance. "Not because it took away our fear. We're still scared sometimes, but it taught us that being scared together is so much better than being scared alone." Ethan, now more confident and openly affectionate with his mother, added, "We learned that families help each other with the scary stuff. That's what makes them families." The silver locket now sat on Ethan's nightstand, and every night before bed he and Catherine would hold it together and talk about their day, the good parts and the hard parts, the hopes and the fears, everything that made up their life together. The story had ripple effects that continued long after the cameras stopped rolling. The Tonight Show partnered with cancer support organizations to create resources for families dealing with pediatric cancer concerns. Hospitals began implementing family counseling programs that helped parents and children communicate honestly about illness and treatment. Jimmy later reflected that his night with Catherine and Ethan taught him something fundamental about strength. "I learned that the strongest families aren't the ones who never face scary things," he said in later interviews. "They're the ones who face scary things together with honesty and love and the understanding that being afraid doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Catherine continued her treatment while raising Ethan with newfound honesty about their journey. And Ethan grew up understanding that love means showing up for each other in the frightening moments, not just the easy ones. They still faced uncertainty about the future, but they faced it together, with truth as their foundation and love as their strength. And every night, instead of lying awake alone with their fears, they would check on each other, share their worries, and find comfort in the knowledge that whatever came next, they would meet it as a team, scared sometimes, but never alone.